This program is brought to you by the Seabird Institute and Hog Island Audubon Camp. My name is Eva Lark. I'm the Senior Manager of Public Programs. Welcome to our Making Bird Connections lecture series. Thank you so much, Nicole, for being our kickoff presenter this year. These presentations are free, but donations are always encouraged to help fund our programs. This month, all donations will be going to fund Hog Island Audubon Camp operations. You'll be able to find the link in the comment chat section down below if you'd like to make a donation, even just a couple of dollars. All of it helps support these free programs. Tonight, we're proud to have Nicole Jackson as our guest speaker. Nicole will be sharing her talk, Healing Nature, Health and Wellness in the Outdoors. Nicole has worked in different capacities throughout the past decade as an environmental educator, a facilitator, freelance consultant, instructor at Hog Island for family camp. She does a little bit of everything. And currently she lives in Ohio, and her hope is to get more communities of color connected to nature in their neighborhoods. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Nicole. We're looking forward to the presentation.
Thank you so much for having me. Sorry about the wait. I was having some difficulties with my computer, so I had to set it up or restart it, but everything looks good now. I'm so happy to be here with you all this evening. I can't believe it's February 9th already. Time is weird. I remember when it was November, like it seemed like yesterday, but it's so long ago. But at the same time, I'm excited that we'll soon be transitioning into a new season. I'm very fond of the winter months, especially when the birds start to show up, the sparrows, hawks, owls, and we're near where I live. So I get really excited to see what birds show up each season. And I'm looking forward to spring migration. So hopefully you are as well. I feel like with the Audubon camp, I've since made so many connections with people from the camp and with the National Audubon Society, and continue to have conversations around my experiences being in nature and being in environmental education, kind of facilitator, educator, consultant, but also thinking more about my personal journey as I go through this journey professionally. And it's opened me up to so many opportunities, including the Hog Island Audubon camp. So I'm very grateful to continue to be able to build and grow these relationships. So I have my presentation that I'm going to go back here, share screen, and we can get started. And by the way, I'm in Columbus, Ohio, but I'm from Cleveland. So hopefully we have some Ohio people on the call today. All right, so. Okay, can everybody see that okay? All right, so my presentation is called A Healing Nature, Health and Wellness in the Outdoors. Talk a little bit about my experience with nature connection, but also kind of the layers of my professional / personal background with building a relationship with nature and how that's impacted my life. So some pictures on here are not mine, but others I have taken myself. I actually started doing some nature photography, bird photography past couple of years, and it's been a very exciting journey to add to my nature experiences, and this is one of them. So this is a picture that I got taken near a trail where I live, and it was totally by mistake. It was a cold winter sunny day, and I was actually out birding for a little bit of time, and decided, you know, I was pretty tired and was going to head back home. And I heard this really random call, and I was like, what is that? So it stopped me in my tracks. I'm getting closer. There's like this river next to the trail. And I hear it again. So first I hear a bunch of ruckus, and I think it was two birds. So I ended up seeing one of them fly away, which was the red-tailed hawk. And then I heard another sound, very frantic call, and I looked up and I saw this eagle that perched. And I was just, my mouth was agape. I was literally just like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this is happening. So I hurried up, pulled my camera out, took the picture. I think this was the second shot. I think I got 3 shots total. And it was just perfect where it landed and the blue sky in the background. And I was so happy. And just as soon as I took those few photos, it flew away. So this was one of the highlights of my nature photography outings. So it is February, as I said, which means it's supposed to be colder, but it's not. It's actually like 60 something degrees right now in Columbus, Ohio, and we've had really high winds, very nice warm weather, surprisingly, and it's supposed to go back down after today. But we haven't really had much snow, and I think February is our snowiest month for the winter time. So the seasons definitely look and feel different, have over the past few years, and I feel like that's bringing in a lot of different things that I'm paying more attention to outdoors. So this is a photo that I took when I first started my photography. There's this park that I went to, and it had kind of a setup near the trail, and there's bird feeders, and I got this shot of this cardinal, northern cardinal male, and then the female's right behind. I didn't even notice that the female was right behind him. So until I went back and looked at my photos, which was really cool. So they're cute. So a little bit about me. I grew up in inner city Cleveland. I have 10 siblings, 7 sisters and 3 brothers, very big family. My journey essentially with nature started when I was really young. And in foster care, unfortunately, I went through abuse when I was in foster care, and nature kind of was my go-to to heal and escape all of that. So growing up in inner city Cleveland, you didn't have, the like wild, trails, parks, places like that, but we did have green spaces, patches of green spaces that I would go to, in the backyard or a nearby park. And that's kind of how my relationship with nature started. And then these pictures that I have right now, it's my connection to nature through TV. So growing up, I watched a lot of nature on PBS. I think it's in Cleveland, it's WVIZ. I loved reading. Wishbone was a favorite show of mine. And then I would visit the library so much to read about different plants and animals and places that I dreamed about going to be able to watch wildlife in their natural habitat. So fast forward to through college or through high school, going into college, thinking about different careers in the environmental field. And this was actually my first connection with the National Audubon Society. It was through an internship that I did at The Ohio State University. And I didn't know what the National Audubon Society was. I found out more as I did this internship and was able to meet other young environmental leaders across the United States. And I worked with a few peers that I took courses with at The Ohio State University, and we came together to do bird conservation projects. So I ended up doing mine at the Grange Insurance Audubon Center in Columbus, Ohio, and that was actually my first environmental education job, helping with their youth summer camps. So this is a picture that we took. We did a retreat together at the National Conservation Training Center in West Virginia, and this is where we all got to meet each other for the first time and share our ideas and projects of what we wanted to do as far as our kind of regional conservation work. And then with learning more about these opportunities through community engagement and environmental education, I was able to create events and opportunities for me to connect more with my community in Columbus, Ohio. I actually was working at a botanical garden at the time, and went through a program that focused on through the Children in Nature Network to get trained and come into a space or bring that knowledge and that training back to Columbus, Ohio to create my own events. So I ended up calling them Learn Your Park Sea-Bus, and I had them at different neighborhood parks. And we focused on a plethora of topics, so nature connection, parks and recreation, community outreach, health and wellness, wildlife education. I worked with a lot of community agencies, conservation agencies to show people in the community that they can go to the parks and experience them in a different way through education and outreach. And it was a really just fun opportunity for me to get to know everyone in the neighborhood and what they enjoyed about their parks, how they use them, and what type of nature they were being exposed to. And bird watching was one of those, but also wildlife education. So they would learn about the different wildlife that was showing up in their neighborhoods. So I ended up going to a conference for the first time. This was my first environmental education conference, national conference, and it was in Baltimore, Maryland. And it was an awesome experience. It was a crazy time because I think it was October, I believe, and they had a government shutdown. So at some point, like a good portion of the conference attendees had to leave because they were federal employees. But this was also, during this conference was also my first time seeing a hooded warbler on the sidewalk going back to my hotel room. And never in a million years, I would think I would see a warbler. And it was like a really yucky rainy day. So like even just thinking about how weather impacts migration, just walking to my hotel room, talking with a friend, and you're just used to seeing, the sparrows and the pigeons everywhere. And then I'll, at the corner of my eye, I see this greenish yellow bird fly down. And I was like, oh my goodness, it stopped me in my tracks. I totally forgot what my friend was saying. And I'm like, there's a hooded warbler on the sidewalk. And she was like looking at me like, what are you talking about? It's a hooded warbler. So I was having a moment, but I was so glad that I did, just because it just opened me up even more to the wonders of birding. So this conference was just another opportunity for me to network and connect with urban environmental educators. And one of them was the great, awesome Rodney Stotts, who's a Black falconer in the DMV area. And I got to hold his, I believe, Saudi Arabian falcon, James, who's since passed. But that was an opportunity for me to have a little bit more exposure with urban environmental education and hear about his story and how he was inspiring youth to get into falconry, into building their stories, personal stories, into the work that they do. So this is me on the left when I first started my internship through The Ohio State University as an avian technician. And this is my first kind of exposure to kind of landscape ecology and thinking about birds and monitoring them and banding and predation, things like that. So we go to the different parks in Columbus, Ohio. So there's city parks, there's metro parks, and study Acadian flycatchers and northern cardinals. And I knew nothing in detail or specifically about birds, but this was an opportunity for me to see them up close, pay attention to their behavior, and really just have an opportunity to explore the natural areas in the city. So not only did I learn a lot about birds and field research, I also learned about the different parks that were near where I live, because moving from Cleveland to Columbus, without my family, it was really hard on me, and it was really hard to kind of expose myself to things outside of college campus. So that was a way for me to really connect to those natural spaces. So now I'm using nature to help others heal. So this is a photo of a retreat I did a couple years ago with a group of Black women, really good friends of mine from Cleveland, and we did a retreat near Mohican State Park. So we ended up doing a hike and learning about plants and learning about birds and animals and how nature can help us really use our senses to connect to the natural world. So it was a really fun opportunity to show them how to experience nature coming from the city. So connecting to our five senses, I feel like is something that I teach about a lot and still use to this day with how I use it for healing and my health and well-being, my mental health specifically. So I have a few pictures that kind of connect to those five senses, and I hope you can see them. Okay, but the first one in the top left is a picture of cottonwood leaves. So I get super excited going into the summer because I don't know about anybody else, but the fluff, the white fluff from the cottonwoods reminds me of like, it's just like snowing in the summer, but also Baltimore Orioles, because they use that to nest or nest in the trees themselves. And that was part of my field research. I got to experience baby Baltimore Orioles being taken care of in cottonwood trees. There's also the way they sound when they're blowing through the wind. It reminds me of the ocean. So every time I hear the leaves rustling of the cottonwoods, it's such a beautiful sound, and it reminds me of the ocean, even though I don't live near the ocean. It's an awesome reminder. Watching sunsets, something that really helps my mental health. Eating mulberries. So when it comes to taste, it really, those types of things take you back to your childhood memories, as well as thinking about culture, thinking about taking care of ourselves as far as nature, being able to nourish our bodies, drinking water. Those things really connect on a different level. And then touch. This is a picture of, I want to say this is kind of like a fungus, but it's like a gelatinous type of fungus. And I remember seeing a lot of this when I was doing my field research, and it was fun to touch. I don't know if that's the same for everybody, but just the textures of nature were really inviting for me. Being able to smell flowers, crisp, like after a rain, like it smelled different in the air, especially during the spring. And it's just such a nostalgic feeling. So really opening up your self to use your five senses to practice self-care. I think it's something that I really encourage and think everyone should try. And it's a way to check in on your body, your physical, your mental, your emotional, your spiritual even. And I hope you do more of that. So a couple years ago, I left my job. I was working at a university and decided I was just pretty burned out and tired and wanting to try something new with my career path. So nature was a big part of me making that decision and just wanting to take better care of myself. So I just used that time after leaving to go out to tune in to myself and learn more about myself, and to challenge myself in a different way. And then I restructured my schedule. So I didn't really plan a lot after I left my job. It's just more of like focusing on resting, doing a lot more nature walks, being intentional with my time, setting boundaries with my time. I loved being out in nature. It helped me daydream and manifest ideas that I've been thinking about for a long time, and really just writing them down and experiencing those feelings of joy, thinking about planning for my future. And nature just really gave me an opportunity to create those ideas and do something with them. And rest was key. So rest, not only like sleeping, but again, daydreaming and having space to create a future that I wanted, that was more joyful, that was more uplifting, and really having a chance to share that with other people. So I'm just going to show you a little bit, some photos from my Hog Island trip. And this was one of the photos that I took of an osprey when we first got to the boat dock area. They are so cool. I am obsessed with these osprey. So to be able to get this close and just see them and their personalities on the nest and flying and calling, that was just a really awesome moment for me. So to be able to just, as soon as I get there, now I'm like, there's osprey out here, and then see them and be able to take photos and share those reactions and experiences with the staff and people that I was meeting was so fun. So this is two of the campers from the family camp that I got to work with. Jeff and his son, oh my goodness, they are a hoot. So there's a part of the family camp where we got to visit other islands or sites to explore the birds and the land. And I just decided, they were looking at like shells and things on the water. So I just decided to take my camera and take some photos of them engaging with nature, which again, that's something to be able to see a father and son connect in that way and share stories and create new memories was something that was very inspiring to me. And then I got to facilitate and lead a workshop focused on creating poetry and using nature as inspiration. So this is one of the photos. So it's kind of an art component with the poetry. So they got to create their own art. And we used the haiku format to create the poems. That was really awesome. So I just decided to hang those up for show and tell for the other participants. And again, it was just another opportunity for the adults to really just let loose and like focus more on their creative side, along with the kids and the youth, and like really helping them work together and use nature as kind of like their creative canvas to explore their emotions, but also their connections to nature, like what things were coming up, what memories were coming up, what things they were looking forward to doing for the rest of the week. So that was a really awesome opportunity. So I decided to include this just because so one of the junior instructors, she's also from Cleveland. Sorry, I'm totally blanking on names right now. I'm so not good with names, but she's from Cleveland also, and we've connected on a few different occasions with our birding interests. And I just decided to take pictures of her while she was there. And I just felt like I needed to do that just to have some connection to her, but also a connection to her understanding how important it is to have her in that space with a love of nature and her interest in birds. And for me to be able to see that was really inspiring and engaging. And then understanding that she had a story to tell through that photo, because she was really excited to just be out and finding things in the seaweed and the water. And I feel like just having more of those photos of people that look like me enjoying nature in a more intimate way is something we need more of. So these are just a couple of questions. You don't have to answer them. You can just take, if you want to think about them later. But something I really think about in terms of how I teach and how I learn, and continuing to build my relationship with nature. So thinking about your earliest nature memory, and especially if you're an adult, it's hard to think about that instantly, especially, thinking about our lives, work, the time we have to give to other people. It's really hard to really go back to those childhood moments. So I think it's really good to find time to reflect on those nature memories, and what made it memorable for you. And then as far as working with youth, getting them engaged and helping them build a relationship with nature, these are some questions that I ask adults that are wanting to build more of a connection and learn more. So how do you learn? How do you teach? What do you consider your strengths in this work? What do you consider your weaknesses? So that may be, I'm not good with technology, but I know how to journal. Or I'm not good with journaling, but I know how to use eBird or Merlin, and I can show someone else. So having those, being able to answer those questions, and then how can you turn these things or whatever strengths and weaknesses you have into teachable moments or opportunities for you to grow or the youth that you're working with to grow. So as far as the work that I'm continuing to do, I feel like I have this holistic purpose of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And nature is very much the foundation of that. I feel like nature shows up in my personal life, my professional life, and in so many different ways. So inspiring others to do what they love, following their passion and purpose, growing and improving lifelong learning skills, challenging myself every day to learn something new. I've done a lot of that, especially after field work. I realized how exciting it was to learn different outdoor recreation activities like kayaking, zip lining, rock climbing, bird watching, even, and to be able to learn and improve my skills in a more meaningful way. Sharing my stories with others as it is my truth and lived experience. Learn from others, find mentors, and celebrate and push me. So finding people that show up for you, no matter what you're interested in, having someone be your cheerleader, I think is so important. So finding that person to help guide you into the things that you want more of in your life and that you want to work towards, whether it's professional or personal. And reminding myself that I am enough because I exist. So not having to put so much expectations on myself. Nature teaches me that. Nature teaches me to be more patient and empathetic. And I feel like we can learn a lot from nature as human beings. So I know just because I'm doing all of these awesome things doesn't mean I have to do them. And that's something that I'm very proud of. And that's it. If anybody has any questions, thank you for tuning in. Hopefully I wasn't rambling.
Thanks so much, Nicole. That was really great. Loved hearing your story, and I was surprised to see your Hog Island photos in there. But yes, ospreys are amazing, and we're so lucky at Hog Island that we get to live with them. We're going to have a live Q&A here in a few, but because this is Making Bird Connections, we always have a connection speaker where we bring on Audubon staff somewhere in the network and we highlight a program or some type of initiative. And I actually was thinking a great connection to your talk tonight would be to let folks out there know a little bit more about Hog Island. Certainly people that have registered on our Zoom call probably know about Hog Island, but for those that are tuning in on Facebook and other places, they may not know much about it. So I'm glad you talked a little bit about family camp, and I'm going to share our connection presentation, just a little quick overview of the other programs we do, and then we'll open it up to a big Q&A for both of us. So let me just share my screen here. And all right, so again, my name's Eva Lark. I'm the Senior Manager of Public Programs, and as a part of that position, I get to manage the programs at Hog Island Audubon Camp. For those that don't know, it's located in Midcoast, Maine. We're about an hour and a half north of Portland, Maine, and we're just off the mainland. You can see it's just a small channel that connects us, but the really amazing thing about Hog Island is, one, its longevity. It's been in operation since 1936. The National Audubon Society started the camp as a way for teachers to come and learn nature study to take back to their classrooms. 1936, this is the very beginning of probably before most environmental education was really taking place in our country. But Audubon saw it as a potential place for making a larger impact. So the camp opened, and for the last 80 plus years, we've been running programs, and they look very similar today as they did back then. If you look at this photo of the participants going out on their boat trip, I will say, Nicole, you and I never wore such fancy outfits when we were going out on boat trips. But these folks in the 1930s have their suit and tie and dresses and hats on. Hog Island is part of the Seabird Institute, which is a part of National Audubon Society. It also includes the Project Puffer Visitor Center, which is in Rockland, Maine. And then we have 7 research islands off the coast of Maine, where our researchers are studying everything from puffins to Arctic and roseate and common terns, razorbills, great cormorants, and lots of other birds out there on those offshore islands. But Hog Island itself is relatively different from a seabird island. It's forested with spruce and fir. It's very close to the mainland, unlike our seabird islands that are more offshore. And as you can see here in this photo, it's mostly forested and protected. There's no roads. The access to the island is by boat only. And only the very northern peninsula that you see here is where our actual camp buildings are located, and all of them are built kind of turn of the century, our newest building being 1938. But there has been some upgrades. We have Wi-Fi, we have solar, we're 100% solar powered, running water, but we still have those kind of rustic Maine cabins that are more reminiscent of Maine summer camps. A lot of times people ask me, what do you do for a living? And I tell them I run a summer camp for bird watchers, but more specifically, adult bird watchers. We do have family camp and we have a couple of weeks for teen camp, but for all the other sessions of the summer, it's for adults. I often say that I never got to go to summer camp as a kid. It wasn't something my parents had a lot of money to afford, so I get to go to summer camp now full time. If you're like that, this is a chance that you could also come to summer camp. You're never too old. We've had participants all the way up into their 90s. And then our family camp starts at 8 years old. So really 8 to 90, anywhere in between, we have some type of program that probably would speak to you if you're interested in nature. The grounds themselves, they're very much Maine coast with the buoys, and the water is all around you. The buildings, like I said, they are very rustic, but we're not really in the buildings. Basically, from sunrise to sunset, we're outside engaging with nature and playing. I think as adults, we often forget to play. And I think that Hog Island is one of those places where you are encouraged to play as an adult. Field trips encompass anything from going to the mainland to migratory bird hotspots, taking boat trips out in the bay, rowing to different islands for exploration, taking island hikes, and every evening we have a different presentation done by one of our amazing instructors where they are giving us some insight on a topic, whether it be something about photography or botany or bird conservation. We really hit a lot of different topics throughout the summer season. This is a list of all of our summer camp sessions, and you can see just by the list all the different types of week-long sessions we have. So if you're an artist, we have an arts and birding session if you like to paint, or photography camp. We still have an educators week that's in July, and teachers can come. They can get their continuing education credits to stay certified and kind of continue that legacy of over 80 years of providing programs for educators and educators of all backgrounds. It could be college to pre-K to informal educators like myself and Nicole, who do more environmental education or facilitation. But we also have these really amazing teen camps, and those provide a place for our 14 to 17-year-olds who often don't know another birder, or the only other bird watcher they know is probably someone much older than them. So it's a really a place to connect. There's something really for everyone. If you want to volunteer, you can do that through our Friends of Hog Island nonprofit. We even have seasonal positions. You can come work for us. Right now, we're hiring for a seasonal naturalist to live and work on Hog Island for the summer, in addition to some other camp positions. The really amazing thing, though, for me, and the reason I thought this would be a good connection to Nicole's talk, is because Hog Island is like a place where people connect to nature. It's a place where they are given the permission to go explore or look at organisms in the tidal pools, or go on a boat trip and really kind of, nerd out and get energized by your peers who are interested in the same thing as you are. And you get to learn from these amazing instructors. And the friendships that you make, I've heard from my teen campers who are now my adult instructors, who tell me they made a friendship 1 week when they were 15 years old, and here they are now 30 something years old, and they still are in contact with that person on a regular basis. Just those kind of lifelong friendships that are forged. It's also the birthplace of Project Puffin, which now is called the Seabird Institute, because we're not just a research project in Maine. Now we have this global reach with seabird conservation, but the birthplace was on Hog Island. Steve Kress was an instructor at Hog Island, and he became inspired to start this project. And I think there's probably so many other things that have been inspired at Hog Island that we don't even know about, friendships and connections and new projects. It really is a place, at least for me, I feel rejuvenated, revitalized, certainly benefits my well-being when I'm, feeling like the world is a little overwhelming. Having that time at camp really does ground me into just being present. So if you want to learn more about our programs, feel free to go to hogisland.audubon.org. We have virtual programs like the one you're listening to right now, and then we have a lot of in-person events as well, day trips, camps, special events. And I do want to thank a few folks here who let me use their photos tonight. These are instructors and volunteers who are very gracious in letting us use the photos and take photos when they're at camp and sharing those with us, because my words can't demonstrate, but hopefully some of these photos do connect you to what kind of place that we're trying to continue the legacy of. And with that, I'm going to open it up to our Q&A. I've seen some questions already coming in, so you can ask questions about Hog Island Camp. You can ask questions to Nicole or to me, and I'll be pulling those right out of the chat and kind of moderating them. So my first question here is from Diane, and it's about what is your spark bird? So Nicole, do you, for those who don't know, a spark bird is kind of the bird that gets you really interested in looking at birds. And most bird watchers have a spark bird or a spark bird story. Nicole, do you want to share yours?
Yeah, so mine goes back to when I was doing my field research at Ohio State. I feel like I want to say it was, and this is just because it was a vivid memory of checking a gray catbird nest. And I didn't know what a gray catbird was. I thought they were awesome because they had the little black cap, and I didn't know they had a rusty patch under their tail. That was fascinating. But even more fascinating was finding out that they had blue eggs. Blue was my favorite color, so it was just like, I felt like I was being pranked and like someone dyed the eggs and like put them in the nest, but they're like, no, they really have blue eggs. So having that experience of like, okay, we're gonna go check this gray catbird nest and see if the eggs have hatched. So I had to get down on all fours and like, under this bush was where the nest was, and getting dive bombed by one of the the parents while checking the eggs. So that moment has stuck in my head for forever. And I would say that was kind of my, even though we were studying cardinals and flycatchers, like that moment stuck in my head of, this bird really got me interested in learning about the layers of the bird's life.
Yeah, it's interesting that the Sparkbird question was in the chat. We actually have another person tuning in tonight who is doing a Sparkbird research project. So if Jen, if you want to drop the link to that Sparkbird research, feel free to drop it out there. This is
Nice.
a project that's actually being used at Hog Island, where we're trying to capture Sparkbird stories. So we're helping facilitate getting those stories. And certainly at Hog Island, it's a kind of a fun discussion to have. Our next question is from Facebook, and it says, Nicole, what inspires you, or maybe who inspires you to keep learning and growing? Give us your inspirational tips out there. People we should be tuning into, things that we should be maybe learning from.
So I think for me, I don't know, there's so many things that I get excited about. Just because like nature is awesome. So like anything like with like National Geographic or like nature shows, like I am just, you know, whether it's on Netflix or PBS, like I'm that person who's tuning into that stuff just because the storytelling and like the uniqueness of the wildlife and how they're able to survive and like, you know, these places where you wouldn't expect things to survive, that really inspires me just because I'm a curious person. I love absorbing information. I love learning new things. As far as people, just my friends, I have really awesome friends that love nature. So a lot of them do have bird watching or like field research, science education, STEM backgrounds. And Taiki James is one of those people. My good friend James King Jr., who's also one of the instructors or directors of the Hog Island camps. I believe it's the educator camp.
Yep.
And we actually know each other through our time as natural leaders with the Children in Nature Network. So he's doing amazing work connecting people to the outdoors and sharing his experiences of his connection to his hometown and Atlanta, Georgia, and how he's connected with the land through his family and culture and all of those things. I will also say, so the Black Forager, she's really awesome. She's actually based in Columbus, Ohio too. She attended one of my nature outing events. And she's so popular now. I don't know if anybody is on Instagram or Twitter, but she's a fantastic forager, Black forager. She has a theater background, like she's just very whimsical, bubbly personality, and she loves sharing her knowledge of how she got into foraging. So yeah, some very inspirational friends. And I would say just knowing that nature just creates these awesome moments, like sense of wonder, I think really takes me back to that space of when I was a kid, just curious about things in nature and like, you know, watching caterpillars crawl, smelling roses, watching a downpour of rain, like feeling the sun on my face. I feel like nature is very much that inspiration too.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. The Black Forager, look it up on Instagram. Black Forager's her Instagram name. Videos are amazing. I love them. I was just watching one today. For me, for inspiration, I have to say my Audubon colleagues that I work with are so inspiring. The science work they're doing with seabirds in Maine, or the prairie birds that they're working out in the, working with farmers to try to protect habitat for grassland birds. I'm just so inspired by my colleagues. I feel really grateful that I work for a place that has so many people that are so passionate about nature, about conservation, about education, and I'm always learning from them. So, this lecture series, part of it was is I'm inspired by so many people. I want to give them a little bit of a platform so I can meet them and talk to them and let other people meet them. So yeah, I think that's probably my biggest inspiration. And then teen bird watchers, the teen birders that come to Hog Island, they inspire me. You were speaking about Helena earlier, who
Yeah.
was our junior instructor at family camp. She was a teen birder first. So I met her as a
Yes.
teen birder. And yeah, I feel
And
like
she was an Ohio Young Birder club member as well. So yeah, to see her
absolutely.
grow
I think they
is
gave her a
amazing.
scholarship to come to Hog Island, which is
Yep.
amazing. We have about 65 Audubon chapters and bird clubs that sponsor young people and teachers to come to Hog Island. And those folks are also inspirational to me because they're helping people get to have these kind of experiences. Yeah, I feel like there's in Twitter and Instagram, I know people say things about social media and you can get sucked into them, but there is also a lot of good and amazing
Yeah.
people out there that can inspire you on those platforms. All right, our next
I
question.
agree.
We have one about from Mary. Says, in teaching people who aren't comfortable in nature, how do you suggest specifically helping them become less scared on hikes or less apprehensive about joining?
I think the biggest thing, because I'm just going to speak from my own experience, just building my own kind of confidence in being in the outdoors, which is kind of the opposite for me because I felt more safe in the outdoors than with people just because of what I experienced in foster care. So being able to communicate to people because of the time I spent by myself a lot alone, like as an introvert, um, that time by myself, I could better express what I needed to other people. So just having a friend who's understanding and is willing to listen to your concerns and not push you into something that you're not comfortable with, but walk you through it, like help you take small steps to get to get to that goal. And then really understanding that it's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight. So um, sometimes those things may involve risks. Other times it may involve you're going to have to make smart decisions and plan a little bit better. But it will be a combination. And I feel like if you're willing to kind of step outside of your comfort zone just a little bit, you'd be surprised at what you can accomplish. And, that was me learning about even doing field research. I literally was just like, yeah, this is not something I don't think I would be good at. Just because there was so much information I had to learn and data I had to collect. And I was working with grad students as a freshman and as an undergrad, and really doubting myself because I didn't have nature or outdoor experiences before that. I was going into it terrified. But the more I listened um, and just became more self-aware with just being observant and watching other people and noticing nature and not like reacting and rushing into things, but being very thoughtful. And if it's something that I was just like uneasy about, I wouldn't do it. If it's something like, you know what, I think I can take the next step to try it out, then I would do it. So I think you know enough about yourself to know if you want to take a step or take a pause.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like when I've worked with the young, I'm thinking of my early career, I worked with a lot of urban students who had never been in nature before, coming out of inner city Atlanta and then being on a Georgia coast and like seeing stars for the first time or seeing, climbing a tree for the first time. But there's also this fear of the unknown. And I always tried to approach that as small steps, small achievable
Yep.
things. And when people start building that confidence within themselves, they're willing to keep kind of pushing their boundaries. And so I would start
Yeah.
with something really small. We're going to take a short nature walk. And and then, wow, look what we learned and what we did. And that would allow the individual to gain that confidence. So much of it
Mhm.
is just feeling comfortable and realizing too that nature is a place that can be very comfortable for anybody. Probably what attracts it to both you and I. Some people in the chat were asking about how we're both so curious about nature. How do you get students who are not curious? I think it's similar, just baby steps, trying, kind of building, getting them to do one little thing and feeling that accomplishment so they can eventually get to maybe the bigger thing that you're wanting to ask of them, that can be really uncomfortable.
And I think not having the answer for them, like helping them figure it out is really good, to just let things happen. And you might, spark an idea, or you might spark an interest from just letting, whether it's something that's scary at first and you're building your way to making yourself more comfortable with that experience or with that thing. Like for me, people just assume that because I'm an environmental educator, like I love all things nature, I'm afraid of spiders. I don't like spiders. So I have a limit to where it's like, okay, if it's like jumping spiders are cute, great, yay. Anything bigger, I'm definitely a little bit more hesitant, but being honest with myself about that and other people that I'm working with, instead of trying to put on this armor of like, I'm not afraid, so you don't have to be afraid. But even sharing my honest emotions about how I feel and like how I'm working through it, I think is helpful for other people too.
Yeah, I totally agree. People are always surprised. I'm scared of mice, and they're like, really? You're picking up a snake and you're scared of a mouse? But we all have our limitations.
Yeah.
And it's also nice for people to see that even us nature folks we have our own boundaries, limitations, or shortcomings, that we're all working towards. Our next question is about Hog Island. Someone from Facebook is asking, how do they get to come to the island? You can come to a camp, and like I said, there are Audubon chapters and bird clubs all over the country who provide scholarships. So I would say reach out to your local Audubon chapter, see if they can help support if you need that type of support. We would love to have you. We also have scholarships, ambassador scholarships for folks who want to just need a little bit of help. They're not full scholarships. And then we have really wonderful donors out there that do provide full scholarships for Hog Island that we facilitate. So if it's something you're interested in, I'd say, pursue it, look for these scholarship opportunities. We certainly have funds, and we want it to be as accessible as possible, and understand, coming to Maine is a hard thing. It's very far away from any major city. Boston's the closest, it's 3 hours. But I also tell folks we can figure out solutions. You can fly into Boston. There's actually a bus that can pick you up there, take you all the way basically to Hog Island. We pick you up in town and bring you. So reach out to me, hogisland@audubon.org is our email, or go to our website. Myself or our office coordinator, Lindsay Buckland, would be happy to field any emails or phone calls. So thanks for that question. My next question here is, do we have any book recommendations out there for the crowd? Hog Island actually has a book club called Turn the Page, and we run that with a book club meeting every month, and then we have a Meet the Author talk every month. So I would recommend, if you're a book lover, join me next year in the book club. Nicole, you got any book recommendations for our folks out there?
I would say any of the Richard Louv books are good. I know Vitamin N is one of his books where talks about nature, our engagement with nature from different perspectives, whether you're a young person, you're a grandparent, and ways that you can engage with your communities through the use of pocket parks, gardening. I feel like that's a really cool book. As far as kind of thinking about access to the outdoors and diversity and inclusion, Black Faces and White Spaces by Dr. Carolyn Finney is a good book. That is a book that focuses on the history of outdoor spaces for Black and Brown people. So I think it would be a great addition if you're wanting to learn about a different perspective and engaging in the outdoors from a historical perspective, but also how to move forward in helping those communities.
You mentioned Rodney Stotts earlier, the falconer. He has a book
Yes.
called Bird Brother, a
Yes.
falconer's journey in the healing power of wildlife. I read that this summer while I was at camp, and I thought it was really good and gave me a little. I know some falconers, but this was Rodney's story is very powerful and
Yes.
and inspiring. So I would recommend that one. Great.
And any of I saw someone put Drew's book in here, The Sparrow Envy and The Home Place. Those are both great books by Drew Lanham.
Sparrow Envy is my favorite. I love the poetry book. Yeah, I like his poetry. I think it's really wonderful. The Home Place is great. I'm from South Carolina, and so is Drew. And so and Drew has been an instructor at Hog Island, so we've talked a lot about growing up in South Carolina together. So that book made me think a lot about my family, and certainly gave me this idea of, like, people having a home place, a place that they can come back to. Not everyone has that.
Right.
So. Great. Let me see over on Facebook. We've had a couple shout outs from some of your past Together Green folks. Greg Swick.
Oh yeah. Greg. Oh my gosh.
Shout out
That's
to
awesome.
Greg. Yeah.
Can I say that I have a fond memory of Greg when we were doing the retreat? I don't know, like he's such a kind spirit. Like I remember doing a presentation or finishing my presentation about the project I wanted to do. And like he pulled me aside and we had this conversation, and like he could tell that I was an introvert, like, which I wasn't expecting him to just like, hey, I see you. And we were just having a moment. So like I really appreciate him for that. That's so cool.
I wonder, as an introvert, how do you you're in a public realm, right? You're doing speaking engagements, you're facilitating different types of work with nonprofits. How does an introvert get themselves into that kind of extrovert space?
I think knowing yourself, being self-aware, knowing your limits is really key. For me, taking a lot of naps and finding space to recharge, because that's the biggest thing with being an introvert. It's not even about being shy. We just need time and space to recharge, to go back out, to engage with the world. And for me, nature has always helped me engage with people, just because I have this interest in nature and interest in learning about new things and life and connecting with people. I approach it from a perspective of curiosity and understanding that we're all unique and we all have different things that we bring to the table. So for me, it's my connection with nature. Like my relationship with nature allows me to open up to people, because I can talk about nature to anybody. It could be birds, it could be mountains, it could be hiking, it could be kayaking. And because I know I'm going to light up and have this conversation that I'm really invested in and into, I think other people see that enthusiasm and like feed off of it. And they're learning something about themselves too, because as an introvert, you're more patient, you're more willing to listen and like not talk over people or feel like you have to take up space in a conversation. So I think that really means a lot to other people who are more extroverted. And yeah, like nature just helped me find my voice when I felt like I didn't have one.
Well, Nicole, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been really great spending the last hour with you. I hope the folks tuning in have enjoyed it as well. How do people stay in contact with you if they want to get in touch with you? How do they do that?
Yeah, so I am on Twitter. My Twitter is at wildlifegirl09. And I'm also on Instagram. I always forget how I put my Instagram. I think it's nikki.j10 for Instagram.
Great.
And just so people know, it's Nicole, not Nikki. That's just the name of my account. But if anyone wants to reach out via email, it's Nikki J, so NICKYJ 08@gmail.com.
Great, thanks so much. And for anyone that I saw a couple of folks on the Facebook chat asking about how to get in contact, again, it's hogisland.audubon.org. That's our website, or hogisland@audubon.org is our email. Feel free to reach out. Love to talk to folks about camp anytime. You can give us a call. We love to talk on the phone, because for us, it really is about connection. I feel like I talked about Hog Island being this place of connection for folks. And when we talk to people who are even just interested in the camp, we're trying to create those connections over the phone and hopefully help you get yourselves to us. And we'll show you puffins and tidal pools and get you hopefully back to grounded back into nature. It's a great place to do so. But there's also places just in your backyard. There's small parks, there's state parks, even small little slices of habitat. I tell people my favorite bird list is my backyard list, because it truly is. I love my backyard bird feeders. So, even if you're living in an urban place, or you're too far away to travel, there are ways to get connected even just in your own backyards. And I'm going to drop the link to our next Making Bird Connections lecture series. It's going to be Thursday, February 23rd at 7:30. We are going to have a great talk from Adam DeNuvo. He is a volunteer coordinator for Friends of Hog Island. He's going to talk about volunteering. So for those who want to join us as a volunteer, you'll learn how. He's also going to talk about volunteering as a way to participate in conservation and making those connections. I think it's going to be a great talk. And joining us from Audubon is going to be the campus chapter program manager, Diana Braithwaite. She's going to tell us all about what National Audubon is doing to create campus chapters at colleges all over the country. So it's a wonderful new program that started not that long ago to really energize young college age people and get them connected to nature, get them connected to conservation and policy work, and show them that there is a path to be part of that conversation in the larger nature and conservation and bird world. So looking forward to hopefully some of you joining us for that. And again, we couldn't do this program without donations. So please, if you'd like to keep seeing these free lectures, drop us a donation at the donation link that's in the chat box. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night. And again, thank you so much, Nicole, for joining us. It was really great.